This is the finished beanie hat that we're making. The brim can be turned up if you want to wear it as a regular beanie, or it can be turned down and the hat can be worn as a slouchy. In part 1 I showed you how to join the round and do 1 by 1 ribbing. Now I'm going to show you how to complete the hat in part 2. I'll just mention the dimensions. We've got 28 rows of about 4 inches of ribbing, and 4 inches is the equivalent of 10 centimeters. We're going to have the same measurement for the stocking stitch, but it's going to take a few more rows. So 28 rows, 32 rows here, and then we get to the crown, which is divided into 6 sections, and I'll show you how to do the decreases for the crown. That crown measures roughly 3.5 inches. 3.5 inches is roughly 9 centimeters. I must mention also that this hat stretches and can accommodate a 24-inch round head. Most adults were about 21, 22 inches. Here I've come to the end of the brim of the hat. I've done 28 rows of 1 by 1 ribbing, and I showed you how to do that in part 1. Now we're going to start doing stocking stitch. So slip the row marker over and start knitting all the way round. Just knitting. So here we are, coming to the end of row 1. We're doing stocking stitch, and if we were on 2 needles we'd turn around and we'd purl back, but we're not on 2 needles, we're going round and round. So we don't have to do any purl with this. We just put the row marker over and keep knitting. We want this part of the hat to measure the same as the ribbing, which is 4 to 4.5 inches. This part is 32 rows of knitting, just round and round and round and round for 32 rows. Coming to the end of the 32 rows of stocking stitch now, just before starting the crown. That's it now, time to start the crown. Row marker over. Now I'm going to do the crown. The crown is divided into 6 parts. I've got 114 stitches, and if I divide them by 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts of the crown, I've got 19 stitches per part. I want to decrease 1 stitch each time I go round, so that on the first round I've decreased 6 stitches. Here's how I do it. Row 1, I'm going to remember I've got 19 stitches. I want to decrease 1, so I'm going to knit 17 stitches, and in the last 2 stitches I'm going to knit them both together so that I end up with 18 stitches in this first section. So that's 1, 2, 3, 16, 17, knit 2 together. This is my second section. Now I've got 18 stitches in that section also. Put a place marker. Each place marker between the place markers marks each section. "16, 17, knit 2 together." Now we're back at the beginning, and that is the end of row 1. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and I'm back to the beginning. So I've counted each new section with its new 18 stitches in each section. Row 3, we're going to knit 16 and knit 2 together all the way around. 14, 15, 16. I'm 2 stitches before the place marker, and I'm going to knit them together. So in this section, once again, I've decreased by 1 stitch, and I'm going to do that for every section all of the way around for row 3. Here I've broken the crown pattern down for you. So row 3, knit 16, knit 2 together. Repeat all the way around. All of the even rows you just knit around, there's no decreasing going on. And notice I tick when I've finished a round. I've finished row 2 and I'm on row 3. Row 4 will be just knit around, it's an even row. When I come to row 5, it's knit 15, knit 2 together, repeat all the way around. Then row 6 is an even row, knit around. Continue on until you've knit 24 rows, and you're going to be left with 42 stitches. So the crown of this hat is 24 rows long, and then I'm going to show you how to finish off the hat completely. As I've been decreasing towards the end of the knitting of the hat, it's becoming rather uncomfortable on these small 16-inch round needles, and I'm going to have to go on to some larger round needles and do what's called a magic loop so that the knitting becomes more comfortable. I'll just show you how to do that. At the beginning of the row, slip your row marker over and just put the new needle in and carry on knitting as if you're just on that 16-inch round needle still. I'm on row 20 here as I'm switching. You might want to switch earlier. And I'll show you magic loop technique briefly, and if you need any magic loop magic loop help, just have a look on YouTube. There's lots of videos. So here I have all of my stitches transferred onto the larger round knitting needles, and I'll just very briefly show you how to do the magic loop. Around halfway, just get the plastic part and pull so that half of the stitches end up on the one side and the other half of the stitches end up on the other needle. Now we're going to knit these stitches here, so I want these stitches all on the needle ready to be knitted. And the other needle, I just pull it around, ready to knit. Make sure the row marker's on again. Now we've got a little bit of excess here and we have excess here, so that we're able to knit again. So I just go in, making sure the yarn is on the correct side of the needle, and just continue knitting. So I have like a figure 8 thing going on. The knitting's in the middle. Now this might take some practice if you're new to knitting before you start this, but it certainly does make the finishing off of this hat much easier to accommodate. Now finished with this needle, I want to pull all of the stitches back through off the needles, come around. I want to continue knitting these stitches now, so I've got to push this row of stitches onto the needle. So now I want to knit this row of stitches. I pull this needle around and continue on, making sure the yarn is on the right side, the correct side I should say, and just make that first stitch not too tight, because otherwise it will be difficult to put the stitch back onto the needle, and just continue on with the pattern. And so we've come to the end. I've finished row 24. As I was doing row 24, I took out the section markers, and all I'm left with is the beginning and end marker. So I'm going to cut a nice amount of yarn. I'm going to thread this darning needle. I shouldn't. And I'm going to thread it through the stitches and pull them tight, so I have the yarn doubled over so that it's nice and strong. So I just take the stitches off one by one until I get around to the other side, and all 42 stitches are then thread through here. It's quite a versatile beanie because the 32 rows of stockinette here also divides by 8, and the last 24 rows of the crown divide by 8. So if you want to do stripes, 8 rows of stripes is just right.